Hey everybody, welcome back. This is continuing from part 1. We will commence at the top of page 5, second paragraph, under the revolution of farming and herding. In 2012, almost all of the world's 7 billion people lived from the food grown on farms and gardens and from domesticated animals raised for their meat, milk, or eggs. But before 11,000 years ago, no one survived in this fashion. Then, repeatedly and fairly rapidly, at least in world history terms, human communities in parts of the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and the Americas began the laborious process of domesticating animals and selecting seeds to be planted. This momentous accomplishment represents another first in human story. After countless millennia of relying on the gathering of wild foods and the hunting of wild animals, why and how did human societies begin to practice farming and animal husbandry? What changes to human life did this new technology bring with it? This food-producing revolution, also considered in Chapter 1, surely marks the single most significant and enduring transformation of the human condition. The entire period from the beginning of agriculture to the Industrial Revolution around 1750 might be considered a single phase of the human story, the age of agriculture, calculated now on a time scale of millennia or centuries rather than the more extended periods of earlier eras. Although the age of agriculture was far shorter than the immense Paleolithic era that preceded it, farming and raising animals allowed for a substantial increase in human numbers. In the various beginnings of food production lay the foundations for some of the most enduring divisions within the larger human community. Much depended on the luck of the draw, on the climate and soils, on the various wild plants and animals that were available for domestication. Many agricultural peoples lived in small, settled villages, independent of larger political structures, while drawing their food supply from their own gardens and farms. Some depended on root crops, such as potatoes in the Andes. Others relied on tree crops, such as the banana. In the most favored areas, highly nutritious wild grains, such as rice, wheat, or corn, could be domesticated. In more arid regions, where farming was difficult, some peoples known as pastoralists came to depend heavily on their herds of domesticated animals. Highlight that word, domesticated. Because they moved frequently and in regular patterns to search for pasture lands, they are often referred to as nomads. And highlight that word, nomads. With regard to animal husbandry, the Americas were at a distinct disadvantage, for there were few large animals that could be tamed. No goats, sheep, pigs, horses, camels, or cattle. In the Afro-Eurasian world, conflicts between settled agricultural peoples and more mobile pastoral peoples, and highlight that word, pastoral, represented an enduring pattern of interaction across the region. Okay. Question 12. What was the single most significant and enduring transformation of the human condition? Stop and think. And respond. Yeah, that's right. It was food production, the beginnings of food production. Question 13, define pastoralist. When you come in today, look up on the board above the objectives. The definition will be there. Question 14, why were the Americas at a distinct disadvantage in terms of animal husbandry? Stop and think, and respond. Yeah, that's right, because they didn't have a lot of animals to tame. No goats, sheep, pigs, horses, camels, or cattle that didn't exist for them to use. Continuing on at the top of page 6, the turning point of civilization. The most prominent and powerful human communities to emerge from the agricultural revolution were those often designated as civilizations, more complex societies that were based in bustling cities and governed by formal states. Virtually all of the world's people now live in such societies, so that states and cities have come to seem almost natural. In world history terms, however, their appearance is a rather recent phenomenon. Not until several thousand years after the beginning of agriculture did the first cities and states emerge around 3500 BCE. Well after 1000 of the Common Era, substantial numbers of people still lived in communities without any state or urban structures. Nonetheless, people living in state and city-based societies of civilizations have long constituted the most powerful and innovative, highlight that word, innovative, human communities on the planet. They give rise to empires of increasing size, to enduring cultural and religious traditions, to new technologies, to sharper class and gender inequalities, to new conceptions of masculinity and femininity, and to large-scale warfare. All right, question 15. What were civilizations based on? Stop and think and respond. Yeah, that's right. They were based on those busy cities and those governed states. Question 16. When did the first cities emerge in world history? Stop and think and respond. Yeah, that's right. They emerged around 3500 BCE. Please don't forget the BCE. Question 17. Why have people living in state and city-based societies or civilizations long constituted the most powerful and innovative human communities? Stop and think and respond. Yeah, that's right. It's because these people that had increasing size gave rise to empires. They had cultural and religious traditions, new technologies, sharper class and gender inequalities, and new concepts of masculinity and femininity. So I need maybe 2 of those. You don't need to write every single one. For all of these reasons, civilizations have featured prominently in accounts of world history, sometimes crowding out the stories of other kinds of human communities. The earliest civilizations, which emerged in at least 7 separate locations between 3500 and 500 BCE, have long fascinated professional historians and lovers of history everywhere. What was their relationship to the agricultural revolution? What new ways of living did they bring to the experience of humankind? These are the questions that inform Chapter 2. You're not answering question 18. Continuing on. A note on dates. Recently, it has become standard in the Western world to refer to dates prior to the birth of Christ as BCE, before the Common Era, replacing the earlier BC, before Christ, usage. This convention is an effort to become less Christian-centered and Eurocentric in our use of language, although the chronology remains linked to the birth of Jesus. Similarly, the time following the birth of Christ is referred to as CE, the Common Era, rather than AD, Anno Domini, which is Latin for the year of the Lord. Dates in the more distant past are designed to this book as BP, before present, or simply as so many years ago. Of course, these conventions are only some of the many ways that human societies have reckoned time. The Chinese frequently dated important events in terms of the reign of particular emperors, while Muslims created a new calendar beginning with year 1, marking Muhammad's forced relocation from Mecca to Medina in 622 CE. As with so much else, the maps of time that we construct reflect the cultures in which we have been born and the historical experience of our societies. Okay, question 19. What does BCE mean and what does CE mean? Stop and think and respond. Yeah, that's right. BCE is before the Common Era and CE is the Common Era. Question 20. What event marks year 1 in the Muslim calendar? Stop and think and respond. Yeah, that's right. The 622 CE marks the event, and that's when Muhammad was forced to move from Mecca to Medina. And question 21. What do the ways we measure time reflect? Stop and think and respond. Yeah, and that's right. They just reflect the cultures which have been there first and that experience from our societies. And that wraps up your introductory extra credit assignment. I hope it went well for you. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.